The warm, buttery aroma of vanilla filled the small bakery, clinging to the air like an intoxicating perfume. The walls, once painted a cheerful pastel yellow, now seemed dull under the dim glow of the flickering overhead light. The sound of the wooden spoons scraping against the mixing bowl echoed through the quiet kitchen, where Charity stood, her hands steady, her eyes dark with unspeakable intent. She reached into the pocket of her flower-streaked apron and pulled out a tiny glass vial. The golden liquid inside shimmered under the fluorescent light. It was thick, almost syrupy, clinging to the sides of the bottle as if reluctant to let go. Charity took a deep breath, her lips curling into a wicked smirk as she tilted the vial over the large batch of cake batter. Drip, drip. The liquid swirled into the rich, creamy mixture, disappearing almost instantly. Charity stirred the batter slowly, her fingers gripping the wooden spoon tightly. Her heart pounded in her chest, but not from fear. No, this was excitement, pure unfiltered satisfaction. "They will all suffer," she whispered, her voice dripping with venom. "Just like I did." A sharp knock on the bakery door made her flinch. Quickly, she slid the tiny vial back into her pocket and wiped her hands on her apron before striding towards the front of the shop. "Who is it?" she called out, forcing her voice to sound normal. "It's me, Linda," a familiar voice answered. "Open up! It's freezing out here." Charity hesitated for a moment before unlocking the door. Linda, her best friend and fellow baker, stepped inside, rubbing her hands together. "My God, why is it so dark in here?" Linda asked, squinting around the dimly lit bakery. "I like it this way," Charity replied curtly, walking back to her mixing station. "What do you want?" Linda frowned. "What's with the attitude?" "I just came to check on you. You've been acting weird all day." Charity continued stirring the batter, her back to Linda. "I'm fine." Linda sighed and stepped closer, glancing at the mixture. "You're making the Valentine's Day orders, right? Wow, that's a lot of batter. Did we get that many pre-orders?" Charity nodded, still not looking up. "Yeah, more than usual," Linda whistled. "Love is really in the air this year, huh? Everyone is celebrating." She nudged Charity playfully. "Even Michael. Did you hear? He booked a fancy dinner at La Rose for tonight. Guess he's really serious about this new girl." The spoon in Charity's hand froze mid-stir. Her fingers clenched around the wooden handle so hard that her knuckles turned white. Michael. That name made her stomach twist into a tight, burning knot. Michael, the man she had loved for the past 2 years. Michael, the man who had whispered sweet promises into her ears. Michael, the man who had taken her to this very bakery on their first date, feeding her cupcakes and telling her she was the only one for him. Michael, the liar. He had broken her heart 2 nights ago. She had gone to surprise him at his apartment, only to find him wrapped around another woman, kissing her like she meant the world to him. The memory burned inside her, and for a moment, the room felt too small, the air too thick. Linda didn't seem to notice the tension in Charity's posture. She just kept talking, oblivious to the storm brewing inside her friend. "He really moved on fast, huh?" Linda chuckled. "I mean, I know you two broke up, but still—" "We didn't break up," Charity interrupted, her voice like ice. Linda blinked. "What?" "I never broke up with him," Charity repeated, finally turning to face her friend. "He betrayed me." Linda's face fell. "Oh, Charity." Charity laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think it's funny? That he strung me along, told me I was his everything, then threw me away like trash?" Linda sighed, rubbing her forehead. "I didn't mean it like that. I thought you had moved on," Charity scoffed. "Moved on?" She gestured toward the mixing bowl. "No, Linda, I haven't moved on, but I will." Linda's eyes darted to the batter, then back to Charity. You're not thinking of doing anything stupid, are you?" Charity gave her a slow, knowing smile. "Define stupid." Linda took a step back, her voice lower now, almost cautious. "Charity, you're scaring me." Charity wiped her hands on her apron and exhaled. "Relax. I'm just baking like I always do." Linda studied her carefully, but before she could press further, the bakery door jingled as another person entered. "Hey, Charity. Just came to pick up my Valentine's order," a cheerful voice called. Charity turned, her face instantly morphing into the perfect mask of sweetness. "Of course. Give me a few minutes." As she boxed up the freshly poisoned cupcakes, her heart thudded with dark satisfaction. They would all suffer, just like she did. The smell of vanilla and strawberries filled the air as Charity leaned over the 3-tiered Valentine's cake, carefully placing the last sugared rose on top. The cake was a masterpiece, white buttercream swirled with delicate red patterns, the words "Forever Love" piped in elegant golden cursive across the top. It was the kind of cake that would make lovers gasp in admiration, if only they knew what was inside. The news played on the small radio sitting on the counter, the excited voice of the newscaster cutting through the stillness of the bakery. Reports are coming in about a mysterious illness affecting several individuals across the city. All victims reported severe convulsions, foaming at the mouth, and eventual death. Authorities are investigating a possible case of mass poisoning. So far, most of the deceased appear to be couples who dined out or received Valentine's Day treats. The health department has issued a warning to the public. Charity reached over and turned the volume down, her lips curling into a slow smile. So, it had begun. The poison worked faster than she expected. Those who had bought her special Valentine's cupcakes were already paying the price. Lovebirds, hand in hand, sharing sweet bites of death. She lifted a piping bag and squeezed a perfect rosette onto the cake, tilting her head slightly as she admired her work. This cake was special, different from the others. It was meant for Michael who had made a fool of her. Michael, who had kissed another woman while still holding her heart in his hands. Michael, who had broken her in ways she never thought possible. This was her final gift to him. A parting gesture. A sweet goodbye. A soft chime rang as the bakery door opened. Charity barely looked up as Linda walked in, breathless, a newspaper clutched in her hands. "Charity, have you heard?" Linda's voice trembled as she placed the newspaper on the counter. "People are dying. The authorities think it's from food poisoning, but..." She swallowed hard. "Charity, tell me you didn't..." "I didn't what?" Charity asked, her voice calm as she smoothed out an invisible flaw in the icing. Linda's face paled. "Tell me you didn't poison those cakes." Charity sighed and finally looked at her. "Linda, do you know what it feels like to be betrayed? To have your heart shattered into a million pieces?" "That's not an answer," Linda whispered. Charity picked up a small silver knife and ran the tip along the edge of the cake, cleaning up any stray frosting. "Michael is having a Valentine's dinner with her tonight. The woman he left me for, the woman he cheated on me with." Linda's hands clenched into fists. "Charity, please. This isn't the way." Charity's eyes flashed. "Isn't it? He played with my heart, Linda. He laughed in my face, humiliated me, and now he will have one final taste of my love." Linda took a slow step back. I appreciate your concern," Charity interrupted, wiping her hands on a cloth, "but I have a delivery to make." She picked up the cake and turned toward the door. "Charity," Linda called desperately. "Don't do this." Charity didn't turn back. "Goodbye, Linda." She stepped out into the cool evening air, the cake nestled carefully in a box. Michael's apartment was in a high-rise building, the kind only the wealthy could afford. Charity took the elevator to the 7th floor, her heart steady, her hands sure. She knocked on the door. Footsteps approached, and then Michael's voice, irritatingly cheerful, called out, "Coming." The door swung open. He stood there in a crisp button-down shirt, his hair neatly styled. And behind him, her, the woman who had stolen everything from Charity, dressed in a tight red dress, her arms draped around his waist. For a moment, Michael looked surprised, then he smirked. Well, he drawled. "Look who's here." The woman behind him giggled. Charity forced a smile. "I came to bring you something, a gift." Michael raised an eyebrow. "A gift?" Charity lifted the cake box. "It's Valentine's Day, isn't it? I wanted to wish you both well." Michael snorted. "That's rich coming from you." His girlfriend peered over his shoulder. "A cake? That's sweet of you." Michael chuckled. "See, babe, my ex still can't get over me." Charity ignored the jab. She extended the cake toward him. "It's homemade, your favorite, just a little something to show there are no hard feelings." Michael gave her a mocking smile as he took the box. "How pathetic, but hey, free cake." He turned to his girlfriend. "Want to have some?" The woman nodded eagerly. "Of course," Charity smiled. "Enjoy." And then she turned and walked away. She didn't need to stay. She didn't need to see them eat it. She already knew what would happen next. The next morning, the news broke. A shocking tragedy in the city today. 2 young lovers were found dead in their apartment after what appeared to be a violent case of poisoning. The victims, identified as Michael Adeyemi and Sophia Richards, were discovered in their dining room, their bodies covered in blood, their faces frozen in agony. Authorities are investigating a possible connection to the recent wave of mysterious deaths. Charity sipped her coffee, the newspaper spread out on the bakery counter in front of her. She smiled. Happy Valentine's Day. The scent of warm cinnamon and fresh vanilla filled the air as Charity placed the final batch of cupcakes on the display counter. Outside, the city buzzed with Valentine's Day excitement. Couples walking hand in hand, men carrying oversized teddy bears, and flower vendors making a fortune. Inside Sweetheart Delight's Charity's bakery, business was thriving. The queue stretched past the door, lovers eager to get a taste of the bakery that had become the place for Valentine's treats. No one knew. No one ever knew. She had gotten away with it. Michael's death had been ruled an unfortunate case of food poisoning. The authorities had suspected some bad seafood from the expensive restaurant he had dined at earlier that evening. No one questioned the beautiful Valentine's cake that sat half-eaten on his dining table. And the others? The couples who had died mysteriously that Valentine's week? The city had chalked it up to a bad batch of imported chocolate or contaminated dairy supplies. Not one investigator had looked in her direction. Because why would they? She was Charity, the sweet, hard-working baker, the woman who had once been heartbroken but had turned her pain into something productive, the woman who had moved on and built a business out of love. And the irony? Her bakery had only grown more popular after that dreadful Valentine's season. People mourned their loved ones, yes, but life moved on, and by the next year, new lovers had taken their place, eager to celebrate the day with cakes, pastries, and chocolates. Her cakes. Her cursed cakes. Charity smiled as she watched her employees rush around, taking orders, decorating heart-shaped cookies, piping swirls of pink and red frosting onto cupcakes. Linda, still working there, still suspicious but too afraid to ever say anything, avoided making eye contact with her. Every Valentine's Day was a nightmare, not for Charity, but for the city, because every year the same thing happened. Lovers died, mysteriously, tragically, always around the same time. A couple found in their car, unresponsive, their lips stained with red velvet crumbs. A husband slumped over a dinner table, his wife collapsed beside him, a half-eaten slice of chocolate cake on her plate. A young woman who had just said yes to a proposal, only to take a bite of her celebration cupcake and drop lifeless into her fiancé's arms. And every year, no one suspected the kind-faced baker who smiled as she handed out beautifully crafted desserts with delicate designs and heartfelt messages. Every year, her bakery boomed. Every year, she made them pay. And every year, she celebrated Valentine's Day alone, sipping tea by the window, watching the sirens wail as ambulances carried away the unlucky souls who thought love was sweet. They never knew, they never would. And she was perfectly fine with that. The end.